Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ark podcast, episode 29. We are sending a fire hose of podcasts your way. We've got an election coming up. We've got crazy things going on in the world, in America, with Nigel Farage in the UK. But today, I want to speak to you about the crypto world, because if you've been following the markets, it's been, if you're new to the markets, you're probably freaking out right now. And you might be wondering, Joel, why are you so relaxed? Why are you so chill about this? It's because I've seen a couple of these. And today we've invited back our sponsor, Stormrake, who is pretty much my guide on these issues. And they're just as calm as me. I'm here with Bisher from Stormrake. And many of you guys have actually phenomenally taken up their offer to work with them as as their what would you call it, crypto portfolio managers, and you've been in talks with Bisher himself, and that's been going really well. But I'd appreciate that some of you guys are relatively new to the market. You don't understand when there's a correction, what do you do? Not freak out. But also, we've got an election coming up, and later on, I will be taking you through part of the Libertarians' Bitcoin policy, which you can see right here, that Jordan Ditloff was nice enough to send to me. He was recently in Sydney for the Bitcoin conference, and Bisher has had a brief look through this. We're going to go through some of the details. But without further ado, Bisher, welcome to the show, mate.
As always, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me back, man. It's such a beautiful studio, and I love being in Sydney and catching up with yourself. And yeah, great to be back, and thanks for having me on.
Look, I don't want to start with, don't take this offensively at all, but I really appreciate the facial hair. It makes me feel at home. But mate, when I was in America, because I'm getting the KFC vibes there.
Yeah.
So I found out that the Kentucky is losing the HQ of KFC. It's moving. Yeah, and I was like, how is is it just fried chicken now? Do we not call it Kentucky Fried Chicken? So,
where's it moving to?
I have no idea. I'm like, how could you move it out of Kentucky?
Maybe Louisiana, and it's LFC now.
LFC. So no, so look, we've been looking at the markets, and there was a large drop off. Where did that? You'd know the numbers off the top of your head.
Yeah, absolutely. So we ran up to, just before the inauguration of President Donald Trump, we ran up to 109,000 US. The lowest point that we've reached so far in 2025 has been 77,000 US, approximately. So it represents about a 30% drop in the market price since the peak. And now we're trading at about 84.5. So a bit of a rally, which is good to see. Normal price action, in my humble opinion, in terms of any time you have a very strong rally, especially when it comes to crypto markets, there's almost always a cool off. And now what we're seeing is people looking at, we've had things come into life like the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, which when I came on the show last time, we talked about what that would look like.
Amazing.
Right? And now that's actually signed into effect via an executive order by President Donald Trump. What happened, however, is people were expecting the executive order to contain some sort of purchasing program, which is going to come out and say we're going to buy 1 million Bitcoin over the next 5 years, which I still believe they'll increase their Bitcoin holdings. But for now, they've said that they will not sell their existing Bitcoin stockpile and look to add ways as long as they're budget neutral and not at the expense of the taxpayer. So that makes perfect sense. Good fiscal policy, in my humble opinion. And we're seeing some, continued knock-on effects. The main reason why Bitcoin has actually pulled back is not so much the geopolitical, which is obviously being affected by the tariffs and whatnot and the trade war. It's being more affected by the slowdown in global liquidity that came in at the end of Q4 2024. But because of the President Donald Trump's election victory, that we had seen the markets rally. So the liquidity, the less currency sloshing around the system, we're talking about euros, GBP, USD, Aussie dollars, that had contracted, which obviously had affected the Bitcoin price, a bit of a slowdown. Now we're seeing global liquidity absolutely flying, which shows us that prices will naturally follow as liquidity increases, because Bitcoin is super sensitive to the currency printers.
Yeah, just to jog people's memory about the Bitcoin Act 2024, this is basically what was proposed as a way of moving forward in the Bitcoin world to make it more formalized and institutionalized. The step one was establishing a strategic Bitcoin reserve, which could not be sold for more, they had to be held for about 20 years at least. And so the Federal Reserve would basically, the US government would hold 200,000 Bitcoins every year they would purchase for 5 years, totaling $1 million a Bitcoin, a million Bitcoins rather, and they couldn't hold it for sell it for more than until 20 years had passed for each of those. And I think that's phenomenal because it's sort of given a lot of people a lot of confidence about the crypto space. The last time you were here, we were complaining about why isn't the government more on the actual laying down some framework and some confidence for people. And you rightly pointed out, why would you wait for the government to do that? I mean, this is literally anathema to the government. And again, look, I'll just finish off by saying it's also about giving people protected self-custody rights with regards to their Bitcoin rights and everything. And I think that's important. So just to jog your memory, that's given a lot of people confidence when he got in. We saw this huge bull run. It reached, 106,000 USD per Bitcoin. About 60,000 Aussie dollars. But we did see, we saw a bit of a drop-off down to about, in terms of USD, down to 78,000. So it was certainly a big correction. And I heard a statistic that it was about 75 to 80% of the people that dropped off and sold out during that were first-time people freaking out. And I thought it was absolutely important to get you in to talk about that, because a lot of people haven't yet gone through that emotion of trading and conquering themselves per se. And that's where you come in, because you're sort of like a bulwark against that. Relax, guys. I've been in this for, however many years. And so, what are your thoughts on all of that?
Absolutely. I mean, look, there's a number of things here when we're always talking about price. And I'm very sensitive towards price because it's what we talk about. It's what we fill our clients' orders based on. We're trying to be very sharp in terms of and being very competitive as a broker to get you the best possible entry prices. But what we sometimes forget or neglect when we are always focused on price is value, right? Is what is it that you're actually getting when you do purchase Bitcoin? And you're buying sovereignty, you're buying freedom, you're buying independence from the banking system, you're buying independence from government-issued currencies. What is the price of something like that? That's invaluable, in my humble opinion, right? So yes, there's a trading price and a market clearing price that will tell you what you can buy Bitcoin at, what you can sell Bitcoin at on any given day, and that's set by the free market, which is one of the best ways to actually ascertain value, because you don't want centrally planned value systems, which is, going back to central banks and the governments and everything. That's the reason why we're having a cost of living crisis. It's the reason why the Aussie dollar, which we colloquially know as the Pacific peso, useless garbage, right? Why is there so much strife in Australia right now? Is because of economic mismanagement, fiscal mismanagement, monetary policy that is just completely against the common man and woman. So when you choose to opt out of that system and you opt into Bitcoin, you give up a lot of that, central bank control, and what you face is market price and market volatility. So depending on what type of person you are, you have to really come to terms with this decision. Do you want to be free, sovereign, independent, right? Completely the master of your own domain, in complete control of your financial freedom and sovereignty? Then the trade-off with that is you're going to have to give up a little bit of short-term certainty for long-term upside. And that's what the best way I could describe is that there'll always be volatility in the market. The market price will constantly be changing. But if you truly want to be a sovereign individual, you must give up that short-term security blanket that the Aussie dollar in a bank account can provide you, and go into the market and be willing to take control of your own destiny and your own financial freedom.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier the Libertarians Manifesto going into this federal election could be 17th of May, which is what we're expecting. And they have set out a bunch of core principles, which I'm just going to read the headlines of. Number 1, individual sovereignty and financial privacy. Number 2, self-ownership and self-custody over the crypto. Number 3, taxation reform and fair treatment. Number 4, promotion of free markets and innovation. Number 5, economic freedom and financial inclusion. Number 6, freedom of speech and association. And number 7, non-aggression principles. Assert that no individual or government should initiate force against another. Compulsory regulations. And number 8, decentralization as a guard against centralized power. What do you react when you see that that's where the discussion's going with regards to political parties, vying for these crypto votes that are out there? Does that encourage you at all?
Absolutely. I mean, in this beautiful country that we call Australia and we call home, voting is compulsory. And look, oftentimes I do catch myself being a bit cynical. We've got this two-party system. It doesn't matter whether I've got my left boot or my right boot on your neck. It's still a boot on your neck. Doesn't matter which side of the political spectrum it's coming from. But reading these libertarian principles, this is the stuff that I live for. I am an ardent libertarian. I'm an ardent free market supporter. I'm an ardent free money systems type of guy. I feel that that's the best thing that we can have is less government involvement, more freedom of association, more freedom of speech, more freedom of markets, and just let good ideas win, let good systems win, right? And as long as we can move away from centralization and central planning, how can we call ourselves a capitalist society when everything about what we do from the top down is completely centrally planned, from our interest rates, from our currency supply to our fiscal policy, our monetary? It's all based upon the whims of a few, right? And now they say, oh, well, we're the elected individuals that represent the voice of Australia. But you can't possibly cater to 25 million Australian voices, right? It's just not going to work. The best way to allow people to thrive in a society is allow free market systems and free money to proliferate across the economy, across the nation, get out of people's way. People want to have a savings account, right? And without it being constantly debased, right? They want to have the ability to transact and choose who to do business with. Like, I'll give you guys a bit of an idea as to what's happening in my world, right? As a crypto broker, we have a ton of pain from the commercial banks, the big four, sending funds, our customers sending funds to their deposit account with Stormrake. We're a registered Australian business. We're registered with AUSTRAC, right, for AML KYC requirements.
Yeah.
Right? We share all of our AML policies with our banking providers and our partners, and yet we still receive a ton of problems with the commercial banks. Like, how are we allowing this to carry on and condone action? And then when people come in and they end up getting, sending their funds offshore because it's just becoming really hard to deal with Australian brokers and Australian crypto service providers, and they go offshore to take on monumental amounts of risk and no protections whatsoever, then the bank goes, oh, well, at least it wasn't in our backyard, and they kind of wipe their hands clean with it.
Yeah.
It's a disaster of economic policy and as well as regulation, because the regulator has kind of left the policing to the commercial banks, and it's a completely top-down dynamic. Reading those policies that you've just outlined there, that's where I'll be voting, right? That's where I'll be leaning towards. And look, is that going to do anything for the two-party system? Probably not. I mean, I'd like to hear your thoughts on whether...
Oh, look, I'm a numbers guy when it comes to the elections and the seats. You have a phenomenal candidate in Jordan Ditloff. He's running for the Libertarians. He's part of the guys that was critical in putting this together. And when he came in for an interview a week and a half ago, he sat in that chair and we went through... he was about to go to the Bitcoin conference right after. And no, look, a guy like that, in terms of the numbers, can he make a difference in the major parties? In the Senate, because he's running for the Senate. If he gets up, and if enough people like him get up in the Senate around Australia and they control the balance of power, it's like the reins on a horse. Because we're heading for a minority government in Australia in May, and in this federal election, both in the lower house and in the Senate where he's going to be. Now, if he controls some of the numbers in the Senate, if he gets up and a few others like him and they advocate for some crypto policies in return for something at the majors, we can get some protections around this. Because I agree, it's gone too far. It has gone too far. And the problem is it's because a lot of Aussies have checked out of democracy and they've stopped engaging. In our constitution, if you don't vote, there's no, the election isn't invalid if 99% of people don't show up, but 1% do. It's still valid, but you'll be literally governed by the 1%. So people do need to show up. They do need to go exercise their most sacred rights is to vote. And look, yeah, the second greatest right we have is to get out of here if it's not working out. If you want to, go to a less safe place and then put your money into Stormrake or do your business overseas. You're right, a lot of people are looking at that. They're moving to Bali, they're moving to Singapore, they're just getting out of Australia. And it's a shame. It's like, why should we deprive ourselves of some of the greatest innovators that this country has just because our government, is throwing this on the banks to, police it? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think that for me, it's just about, we want to be able to advocate for good policy. We want to advocate for common sense, and that's what the policies that you've just outlined shouldn't be something that we have to beg for or plead for from our government. We should be having this as a fundamental right. It's not something we've shifted so far into, authoritarian regimes. Whether you're on the right or the left side of the spectrum doesn't really matter where you sit. They're all about controlling your personal freedoms, where you can do business, how you can invest, where you can spend your money. It's an absolute farce, right? These are very basic common sense principles, and if we can just bring common sense back to government, back to the Senate, back to the House, I would be a very rapt individual, because at the end of the day, we are trying to build a platform and a service for people to emancipate themselves from the controls of the RBA. Because for me, one of the biggest evils on the planet is central banks, right? The fact that they decide what to set the value of money at, and they decide how much they can debase your savings account by, is an absolute, complete debacle of financial systems. And it's why we're experiencing cost of living crises across the planet, particularly here in Australia. And when you ask, our RBA governor, Michelle Bullock, what her opinion is on Bitcoin, or what is her understanding of gold, or where our gold is, she simply shrugs her shoulders and has no understanding and says we have no position on that, right? We need to step away from traditional financial systems, which is not service people in any way, shape or form, has actually deleted the wealth of Australians, the common wealth of Australians, and we need to move towards a financial system in which empowers and enriches individuals, which is, free money, Bitcoin, gold, silver. Let's move back to these pristine assets that allow us to be able to have genuine savings accounts, the ability to save for the future, the ability to invest in oneself without having to take on monumental levels of debt. If you look at all of the economic indicators across the country, personal savings rate down, wage growth down. You look at the amount of credit card debt in Australia. We've got some of the worst household debt to GDP ratios across the planet, right? You look at Australian home loans absolutely ripping up in value because of the fact that rates have gone up and people are having to continuously refinance at higher and higher rates. So any which way you slice it or dice it, it's not looking good for the common man or woman out there. What we need to do is push for free money systems, and this is the hill I'll die on. Bitcoin is the best technological innovation we've had in our lifetimes that can allow the common man or woman having the right to protect their property, having the right to protect their savings account. This is why I'm so passionate about what I do, because I know that if we can have a couple of libertarians in the Senate, and I can continue to advocate for what I do in the commercial world, we can genuinely improve the life and the quality of life for many Australians across the country. We just have to, like I said before, give up some of that short-term certainty and security blanket that we've come to know and love by having a bit of Aussie dollars in our commercial bank account. We give that up, and what we tap into is freedom and sovereignty and being able to be exposed to, pristine digital assets.
It's interesting, I and talking perfectly transparently with the audience. One of the great joys since our first podcast has been getting a lot of the your clients that have come from my audience calling me up and sharing their stories. And it's been really educational for them because they're understanding your wisdom in putting Bitcoin as the king. Because a lot of these, we can see this now over the last month with Bitcoin having that correction. If you thought Bitcoin's drop of, 20, 30% was bad, you look at these altcoins, these other blue chip coins, they're just collapsing. And there have been many people that have contacted me. There was one dude who was saying, I'm glad I stuck with what Bisher said. I was thinking about investing in this. What do you call them? Shit coins?
Yeah.
In this shit coin, and Bisher said, don't get greedy, stick to Bitcoin, stick with me for 2 years, I'll make you a very rich man. And he's glad he did, because it ended up not being, he kept it in that rather than putting in a shit coin, which would have dropped,
70%.
Six, maybe more. I can't remember what he said, because he did track it.
Yeah.
And because he tracked the price that it was at. And I was like, mate, this is why you need someone to hold your hand if you're new to the space. Look, if you know what you're doing with the wallets, if you're not worried about losing your keys and all that, do it yourself. God bless you. But if you're new to the space and you want that hand and that person, you can pick up the phone anytime and text, say, hey, what's happening? Should we move on this or not? It's important to consult someone because, mate, as I said in our first podcast, it's an emotional experience. Trading. It is an emotional experience, and one of my relatives is in the space. He's an actuary, and he's been trading the markets a bit. And he said, Joel, I didn't realize how much of an emotional experience it is just trading the markets, let alone crypto, which is all over the place. And I was like, like you've got to conquer yourself. It's like that Stoic principle, if you want to conquer the world, you got to first conquer yourself internally. So how did you, how did you go with that period of time with the trading where it went down 25-30%? How do you even get round to everyone? Because that's insane. It's a lot of clients you got.
Yeah, we're pushing nearly 5,000 clients at the moment, and we rely on our digital platforms a lot. We have a morning note that we publish. It's free to subscribe to. Daily research that comes out in terms of what we're expecting in the markets, prices, why we're seeing certain moves. Actually, just being able to understand what's happening kind of actually alleviates 99% of people's concerns. And then for people who want to actually have an update, they can just simply email support@stormrake.com, or like you said, give me a call or shoot me a text. If I'm on a previous line, I'll always attempt to give back to people within the hour. But the main thing that we're seeing is that people are actually doing the right thing when it comes to investing, which is asking questions rather than hitting the panic stations first, actually understanding what is driving this change in price and does it mean that there's a change in value. Something I'd like to kind of really highlight to people is how early we are to the Bitcoin trade. People see it trading at a price of 84,000, 85,000 US, or seeing it trading at a price of, call it 130, 133,000 Aussie, and they think that the unit price has ran away from them, therefore they're no longer early to the investment. You couldn't be further from the truth. Bitcoin is only a $2 trillion market, right? 1.7 due to the recent pullback, right? But still, let's call it round numbers sake, it's a $2 trillion market compared to, say, bonds, which is a $300 trillion market. Compare it to gold, which has been on an absolute tear lately, trading above 3,000 US. That's a $20 trillion market. So even if Bitcoin was go to $1 million per BTC, it would only have a comparable market capitalization of that of gold today, right? That's not saying that gold won't grow any further, right? We're still incredibly early to this fantastic digital asset. It's still very new. That's why a lot of people, when they come to me and say, Bish, I want to buy altcoin ABC, or I want to buy altcoin XYZ. It's trading at 3-4 cents. And if it can just get to $1, I'll be rich. And I say to them, guys, why you're missing the forest for the trees here, right? You've got a global reserve asset in the making in Bitcoin, trading at $2 trillion, right? At least 10 times lower than the trading value that I anticipated to be at by the year 2033. You've got one of the safest 10x return on investments that you can possibly have. Now, nothing's guaranteed when it comes to investing. There's always volatility, there's always risks. But what I like doing is, as a trader, I like to evaluate what are my known risks for my known rewards, right? There's always going to be black swans and unknowns, which is perfectly fine. But what am I actually doing? What risk am I taking? And what is my reward? And in my humble opinion, Bitcoin has one of the best and most favorable asymmetric risk reward bets there are out there. Probably second only to gold and silver. gold's actually quite large now. Silver's got a comparable market cap to that of Bitcoin. So that's where, if you've got a mixture of digital assets and precious metals, you might have a residential property that you own outright. You're in a really strong position as an Australian to get ahead in this, complete change in financial systems that we're actually currently witnessing. But the key is you got to take on the volatility. You have to accept the volatility that comes with it. But we're still really early, because if it was already a well-established and well-entrenched asset, you're not going to get a lot of these 20, 30, 40% drops in the market price, but you won't be able to reliably expect 10x gains over a very short period of time.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Invest whilst the volatility is still here, so you have that potential for upside.
A lot of people, if you guys haven't seen my first podcast, I'm going to link it with Bisher in the description, because you brought up a phenomenal graphic I don't have here, where it was market cap of cryptocurrencies, 1 trillion. Market cap of gold, 17 trillion. Market cap of real estate property, and it had a few
I'll
hundred.
Send it to you now.
Yeah, and that it's such a powerful graphic, because it shows you we are too early. We are very early right now, and you're not bullish enough. I do believe you were saying, and I totally agree. It's just people need to have their expectations managed, do more of a 2 to 3 year horizon rather than a 3 month horizon, and it'll actually help you a lot. And so that's what comes with experience, in my view. Have you?
I've just
there we
dropped
go.
it to you.
Beautiful, excellent.
Yeah, beautiful. I think that's it's a great graphic to kind of actually focus in on and discuss, because when a lot of people come to me and discuss Bitcoin and discuss digital asset investments, we got to actually realize, what is it that we're exposing ourselves towards? What is it that we're actually investing in here, ladies and gentlemen? It's a tiny, tiny asset. It's worth $2 trillion. It's absolutely nothing. It's a drop in the ocean. Compare that to global real estate. It's a $330 trillion market. Compare that to bonds, $300 trillion market. Compare that to fiat currency, $120 trillion market. Global equities, think of a name, BHP, Rio, ANZ, Apple, Microsoft, $110 trillion. We're a complete drop in the ocean. Complete drop in the ocean. So guys, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. You don't have to branch out so severely out the risk curve when it comes to altcoins to get massive upside potential. We're talking about a very small $2 trillion asset becoming as large or as comparable to, say, the equity markets, or what I believe will be much more likely for us to replace is the bonds market, right? Because you're far better tying your long-term value.
Oh my gosh, the bonds are hopeless.
They're hopeless.
Completely
They're
hopeless.
Garbage
Government bonds from the Australian government. Government bonds from Dan Andrews, $400 billion in debt for the state.
Yuck! It makes me ill. So that's what we're talking about. You're not going to become a $200-300 trillion market overnight, and certainly the journey towards becoming a $200-300 trillion asset is going to be marred or marked with lots of period of volatility as this asset changes hands, as the utilities realize, as we financialize this asset. It's going to be a big journey, guys. So strap in. And that's why I'm saying, when you are wanting to step into the digital asset space, 99.9% of people will have plenty of upside and will be perfectly satisfied just being exposed to Bitcoin.
And that's what I tell people off camera. I say this every episode. I get you, and I say, first off, don't invest what you're not willing to see for 2 or 3 years.
100%.
Don't invest outside Bitcoin, basically. Don't invest and expect to see returns in 3 months. You got to give it a couple years. And when it comes to crypto, you need a minimum of 2,000 to do with Stormrake.
Yes.
And just forget about it. Like, put it in, forget about it, come back in a couple of years. You can find $2,000 if you save up over a few months. You can find $2,000. Obviously there's ways to save money if you're just starting out, but also a lot of people have a lot of money in these traditional assets, and they are reconsidering. They're pivoting. They're getting super out early, or whatever it is. There are older people that are taking a bit of equity out of their properties, and that's the thing. you do that, guys. I mean, I guarantee you 2 to 3 years, you'll see a phenomenal result. But of course, it's not financial advice. You've got to do your own research, but just look at the charts. Look at the charts over a 2-year period, and you'll see what I'm talking about. I've been through a few of these crashes. Bisher's been through a few of them as well. It always, I remember, I wish I could go back to the days where it was $75 or when it was $5,000. I remember at the time, I bought up near 20,000 to 25,000 Aussie dollars for Bitcoin. And it drops down to 5,000 AUD. And it was there for a while, just like flatlined at 5,000. And then it picks up to past 25, past 50, past 100, past 150. And it's like, far out. So when I saw the correction, I had a different reaction to the new investors. I was like, thank God it dropped. Thank God it dropped.
Yeah.
Because I know it's going to go double X, 3X, 4X, 5X, 10X over the next 10 years. And that's why this is what comes with experience. And that's why I think you guys are doing great work making it. I just wish you guys were around when I started, so I didn't have to worry about keys and everything.
Well, it's a journey, right? I mean, even when you get a Stormrake brokerage account, eventually people are going to want to hold their own assets, self-custody down the line. That's perfectly fine, right? And then that doesn't necessarily conclude our relationship. We have plenty of our clients. Some of my best clients, one of them is a farmer in far north Queensland. He gives me a call once every 3-4 months. If he's had a particularly good harvest, he'll drop 2 or 3 mil. If it hasn't been as good, he'll drop 1 or 1.5 mil. And then he'll come to me and say, Bish, where are we trading at right now? I've got 2.5 mil coming your way. He buys the Bitcoin with me, says, thank you very much, gives me a wallet address. I send him a test transfer. He calls to confirm, texts to confirm, and then I ship the rest out to him, right? And that's a client who I get to see once or twice every year,
right.
And he'll drop in anywhere between 5 to 6 mil, which is an awesome little top-ups. And again, just because he's withdrawn the assets to hold it himself and do what any good Bitcoiner should be doing, which is taking on zero counterparty risk, that doesn't conclude our working relationship. That doesn't conclude the fact that I give him regular market updates. He's selling down some of his properties. He's heading into retirement now, so he wants to downsize the farm, and he's going to come good when flush with a lot of cash. He's going to come in, buy some Bitcoin, and then it'll go off to him as well. So that's perfectly fine. A lot of people have this misconception that if you're not holding assets with us, or you're not leaving your assets with Stormrake, then therefore you can't maintain your account, or you no longer have access to your broker. That couldn't be further from the truth. We provide digital trading services, digital asset trading services, and custodial services. But if you want to just use us as a trading platform, a trading house, where you can come in, buy, sell, and swap on a reliable basis with a full end-to-end service with a human broker, then that's where I come in. And then when you want to withdraw, that's perfectly fine. And then you'll still get all of the market updates. You'll still get all of the market summaries. You'll get access to all of our research reports. You'll get access to myself on a regular basis. It's all good, and we have people who want to come in and they are wanting to get liquid, for example. So the great thing about Bitcoin is that you can get liquid on it 7 days a week, 365 days a year. What I mean by getting liquid? It means that you can actually dispose of the asset whenever you like with no restrictions. And that's the beauty of this, right? You come in today. Yes, I completely agree with Joel. You want to have a long-term investment horizon, as you would with any investments. You don't try to flip your investment properties today, gone tomorrow. You don't try to do the same with gold and silver or shares. Bitcoin's a long-term investment, so get into it, right? However, if you do want to realize some value along the way, or you need to get liquid, or you might have done really well and you might want to take the family for a holiday, buy a new car, settle your mortgage. There's all kinds of good reasons why you might want to sell your Bitcoin, right? I'm not saying you can never sell, but you can get liquid 7 days a week. You just give me a call. Hey, Bish, I'm after 10K of Bitcoin, 20K of Bitcoin to be sold, and then put the proceeds of the sale into my bank account. Settled same day.
I don't want to ruin your any plans early, but because I know you're always working on new things to make it more accessible for people. Is there any version of like a Visa card that's tied to your Bitcoin accounts that you guys are working on? Because I think a lot of people would just love to be like, all right, literally my bank account is the Bitcoin. And look, again, that is not necessarily a good idea because you might be spending it at a very low time like now. But a lot of people are comfortable moving into that, where it's literally like bam, 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 every time. They don't see it as they see it as their AUD, let's say. Is that something you guys might be working on in the future?
You let the cat out of the bag.
Oh no! Oh no!
So really, what we're trying to build is a complete financial services platform, right? So when you come in and you open up your Stormrake account, you get access to the client portal. You can log in, view your balances, track your portfolio history, how you're going, download reports, transaction summaries, and the like. That's available to clients now. Then the next stage of what we're doing is enabling clients to transact and have a self-service ability to kind of come in, buy, sell, swap, deposit, or withdraw at their own leisure without necessarily needing to go through a broker, right? So that's step 2. And then step 3, there's actually a couple of things that we're working on around the custodial arrangement, which is known as collaborative custody, where I won't trouble the audience too much with it. I'll have the mechanics more clearly laid out, but essentially it means that you can still use Stormrake's custodial service, but you hold a set of private keys as well, which means that the assets don't move without your explicit authorization, your digital signature that you need to sign. But you can still get the full access of the Stormrake's institutional custody arrangement as well, without having to take on counterparty risk as well, which is very much a unique function of it being a digital asset. So once that's been fully laid out and we've gotten it to a grade where institutions, family offices, industry super funds can invest into it, then the next stage that we're doing is opening up a lending and spending solution for our clients where they can be able to borrow against their Bitcoin and over collateralize Bitcoin loans, as well as being able to spend their crypto as they see fit on a Stormrake MasterCard. So there's a lot of things that we're building behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So in any given day, I'm probably running and attending to 20 different projects. But what is great about it is that we are building. When I talk about replacing the legacy financial system, it's not just a punchline for me. It's not just a wishful thinking sentiment. I'm actually actively building what I believe will be the new set of financial systems that will enrich Australians and will empower them to have better and more accessible financial assets that they can trade with on a much more accessible basis without having to go through a central bank's currency.
Yeah, honestly, because I think a lot of people are feeling that right now. You know, the guy that went into the banks, John Bernard, that said, I want to go cash, and
guy,
such a cracker segment where he goes in and he says, I want to get, I want to become a woman, then I need to withdraw 5,000 so I can do that. And one guy saying, I want to bleach my butt, and it was like he had his bank closed after that, his bank account. So he went to America to open a bank account. So I'm thinking about these things, and not only just having your savings, having access to it, or being kicked out, like we saw in the UK with Nigel Farage. 9 banks cancelled him, including the Queen's Bank, and that she had a bank account with.
The Canadian.
But the Canadian truckers having their bank accounts cancelled.
And not only that, but you could have had your bank account frozen by association. There was one of the truckers' mums actually made a trip.
Donated. If you donated to the truckers' fundraiser,
you got
that's right. And the other one is, yes, it's not just about your savings, but it's also about when you go for a loan. So as I understand it's a lot easier to go for a loan if you have land or whatever. But the problem as a podcaster, as a I hate using the word influencer, but as someone that makes a lot of my income from the ad revenue and my audience, it's irregular, and the problem is, and a lot of YouTubers much larger than me have similar problems, where they've got a phenomenal cash flow, but they can't cash in on that because it's so irregular. It's not a contract with a business that can go out of business at any time. So there's actually a lot of, and I understand it is riskier, but at the same time, you mean I can't get anything? Not even a $5,000 loan? Like, do they have any idea how expensive it was to build this place? And it's really frustrating because it's like, if I had crypto, if I had some of my savings in Bitcoin, and I could borrow against that proportionately, obviously with proper actuaries doing the numbers, it's something. And I'm getting nothing from the banks right now. It's ridiculous. And I've got a proven ability to raise funds to run the business and keep the lights on, and it counts for nothing with these guys. Even the short-term lending guys with high interest rates, they don't want to touch me. And a lot of YouTubers I talk to have that problem. And so if you guys are challenging that entire infrastructure, I think, there'll be plenty of...
That's why the banks don't like me at all, because I'm coming for their entire lunch. They're currently about $1 trillion in market cap locked up between all of the banks, right? And I'm coming for them. I'm hunting them. This is me challenging, and I'm happy to say it. CBA, ANZ, Westpac, NAB, I'm coming for you guys, right? You better lift your game, because I'm coming. I've got my hunting game on, and I want to take you guys out competitively and in the fair market and free market, obviously very much in the ethical business way. But you guys aren't actually servicing Australians anymore. You're servicing shareholders, most of which are foreign, and you're no longer looking after the interests of the people. And an over-collateralized Bitcoin loan is going to be the future of loans and lending in this country. And I know that it will easily replace the banks. And that's why I'm not their biggest fan. They're not my biggest fan, but that's okay. I'm after their lunch, and I'm happy to declare that publicly and openly, because every single Australian should have access to 3 things: a fair and independent savings account, which cannot be debased by the government or the central bank; access to financial services, being able to collateralize, lend and borrow against their assets, and be able to have the freedom to transact with whomever and wherever they want, whenever they like, right? Those are the 3 things that all Australians should have access to. And I'm going to fight tooth and nail to make that happen, as well as build services and platforms that will enable people to do that. And of course, do it in the right way, do it the ethical way, do it in a way which condones and encourages good business. But at the same time, those platforms that, the Libertarian Party are running on, financial privacy, financial freedoms, financial ability to transact, these are really core principles to any free capitalist society. Once we start impinging on them, then we're no longer free and able to decide how to do and run our own businesses. We become more and more centrally planned, and that's a trend that we've been going through 20, 30 years now. And I'm really eager to see the pendulum swing back in the other direction, where we can have genuine freedom in financial services, genuine freedom to transact, and that's going to be on the back of, Bitcoin and other digital assets, as well as physical assets such as gold and silver.
Well, Bisher, look, you're a busy guy, but the last thing I wanted to cover before we wrap this up is this story out of the banks, leading into that, where Macquarie Bank announced last month they were withdrawing from the Net Zero Alliance. Will Australia's Big Four banks follow suit? So we are seeing a situation where the market is basically dictating, we don't like what you big banks are doing. Now, what is this Net Zero Bank Alliance that they've withdrawn? Because they very much did bury this lead in a press release that Macquarie Bank put out. This alliance to the Net Zero Banking Alliance basically is a UN-sponsored initiative launched in 2021 to encourage member financial institutions, banks, to redirect investment towards renewable energy and away from fossil fuel projects. So what we see is the perfect storm in the energy markets. We see, oh no, this blackout or these brownouts, they're happening because the failure of coal, of gas, of these old, very large fossil fuel and electricity generating power plants. But they can't get loans from the banks that are members of this UN agreement, and they're just copying all the flack. And they're like, well, you should redirect the money towards renewable energy. It's the cheapest form of energy and whatever. That's because you can't fund the damn, traditional ways of getting energy.
Correct.
So I think, what you guys are doing in many ways is dealing with things that have nothing to do with you guys, which is the energy markets, because finance is everything. It funds businesses. And so what's your reaction to that story before you head off?
Absolutely. I mean, so first of all, let's take it a step back. How does Bitcoin derive its value? A lot of people, this is a really core concern that a lot of people have, is that they think that Bitcoin is just this magical internet money spun out of thin air. No, there's actual energy and capital infrastructure that goes into mining and producing Bitcoins. You can't print Bitcoin, right? It's actually mined. That takes energy to produce Bitcoins, right? It's one of the, old legacy arguments against Bitcoin is that it's an energy guzzler, right? The fact that energy goes into the system to keep it safe and secure and also to produce new coins means that there's a base cost of actually adding Bitcoin to the system. So if I send 1 Bitcoin from my wallet to your wallet, the transaction gets confirmed by miners. They have to hash or complete algorithms. The first one to complete the algorithm gets a Bitcoin reward. That's the most basic explanation I can give of how Bitcoin mining works, right? We won't have to go into the technicals, but to be able to mine or complete that transaction or confirm that transaction and hash all of those algorithms, you need to have lots and lots of computers consuming lots and lots of energy to be the quickest one to confirm the and complete the SHA-256 algorithm that then says my random string of wallet numbers has sent your wallet 1 Bitcoin. That base input cost of energy is what actually gives Bitcoin its value. And when you can make energy markets more sustainable and more efficient because there's a constant base level of demand from these Bitcoin miners, you can actually start investing more into supposed green energies, because what happens is the wind's not going to always be blowing, the sun isn't going to always be shining, so you have to rely on backup sources of energy anyway. But the great thing about what Bitcoin does is it comes in and Bitcoin mining provides a constant base level of demand, and that way when you have periods of drop-off, you can rely on the Bitcoin miners as a constant bid on your energy market to be able to, support energy markets and energy prices as well. And that should stabilize energy prices. So not only do we fix the problem with centrally issued currency, but the very Bitcoin consensus mechanism allows us to provide more support towards energy markets. So for example, you see places like where they have those gas flares, right? There's a lot of Bitcoin miners that set up actually extracting those gas flares to power their Bitcoin mining rigs. That would have been wasted energy otherwise. They would have just burnt the gas off so that the gas plant can stay safe. They take that runoff gas that they're burning and they repower their Bitcoin mining computers, and you now have a perfectly efficient energy system where there's no wasted energy, right? The gas flare-off is going towards mining Bitcoin, which is securing the network, and it's actually then allowing people to transact freely and independently. So it solves a lot of problems, right? And energy is a good thing. Oil and gas are a great thing, right? Australia is one of the largest gas producers. We have some of the largest gas reserves on the planet. I think we're only second to Qatar, right? Yet we give foreign multinationals massive tax breaks, right? We go out and build all of these refineries and ports at the taxpayers' expense, and then they get to extract all of the natural gas, mind you, with massive tax subsidies and tax breaks, and then we buy back the gas from the secondary market.
Yeah,
what a ludicrous proposition.
We don't get paid proper royalties. No, it's ridiculous.
What a ludicrous proposition. So this is why, on this note, and I'm happy to kind of, again, stake myself on this hill, is that we need to fix a lot of markets here in Australia. We need to fix the property market. We need to fix the lending market and the banking sector. We need to fix energy markets. And to be fair, Bitcoin fixes a lot of it. It doesn't fix everything, and it's not a perfect solution in every single case, but it does go a long way to alleviating a lot of these problems that we're facing in modern society, which is a symptom of fiat currency systems. If we can go towards replacing them, and we can reliably build better services, products, and platforms for people to access this new asset, then we're on the right track.
Absolutely. No, look, Bisher, I appreciate you taking the time to come out here to have a chat about where the market's at and also some of these stories. But I think there's no surprise that Trump, he's being highly competitive. He wants to make crypto, the USA, the crypto capital of the world. Hence why he's trying to drive down electricity. And I think that Australia, if we don't have more of these discussions, then we're going to be left behind on this cutting edge technology. So I want to thank you for coming out.
Thanks for having me.
guys, I'm going to have a link to Stormrake's a website. If you want to sign up, open an account with them, and start trading today. Again, minimum 2,000 to start, and see how you go. Talk to Bisher, suss him out, and I think you'll enjoy it, just like many people already have from the show that have tuned in, and I've already tapped in with it. We've already got a number of people that have tuned in. I'm hoping to get at least 1,000 people from the show over there by the end of the year, which is very ambitious, but I think we can do it. And that's good for you. That's good for me. That means we're all taking care of our families and thinking about the future. But also, if you want to click in the link in the description to shoot a cup of coffee for the show on the Buy Me a Coffee link, we're doing a member stream very soon in the next week or so that you can tune in and hear exactly about my US trip in Washington, which I had a lot of fun on, and what I learned from the Turning Point USA guys while I was over there. But God bless you guys. Have a good one. The election is heating up. I'll have plenty more interviews. Tomorrow there is a live stream of the protest in Sydney at Market Street, where we're covering the Chris Minns bill that he's trying to force hospitals, religious hospitals, Catholic hospitals, to do abortions, which is abhorrent, and forcing people to go against their conscience. And so I'll be covering that and partnering with Dr. Joanna Howe to get that out there. And when you guys donate, you help us do these things. So God bless you all. I'll see you later. And Bisher, thank you again for dropping in.
Thanks for having me, my friend. It was a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. See you guys later.